Howdy folks, and welcome to the video for the Italian Tier 5 Tech Tree Battleship, the Cavour. Like a lot of ships in this series, I didn't know very much about the Cavour. I assumed because it was an Italian Tech Tree Battleship that it had poor accuracy and sap shells and okay heals and really not a lot of else. And that turned out to be basically accurate. I did a tiny bit of research and discovered that the accuracy is really bad. And so I decided, well, you know what, the heck with it. This isn't my normal play style, but I am just going to plow on in and see if I can get close to people, but not too close so I don't get torpedoed. And yeah, just focus on targets that are really good for sap. I knew with sap I could do good damage to destroyers, to cruisers, even the heavier cruisers at this tier. The pen here I believe is 74 millimeters, so I can pen just about anybody except for battleships on the parts that are heavily armored. And someone in the chat pointed out a couple players and said that they were particularly good. I assume they have one of those things that can tell people's PR as they go into the game. And so I decided, okay, let's be helpful. Let's help my team out and we'll target those folks. And it basically worked until I mess up later and blow it. But it still winds up being a pretty good game and an interesting one and instructive about World of Warships and the Cavour. So yeah, so I mean, basically the Cavour is 13 sap guns on a floating battleship shell. There's nothing particularly special about it one way or the other. It's a little bit slow, but then, you know, all battleships at this tier are slow. It doesn't turn well. It doesn't have any gimmicks. It just has these sap shells. And, you know, I think sometimes that's enough. When you have bad accuracy, but you have a lot of shells, then typically you just want to either deliver a heavy volume of fire, like keep shooting, or you want to be at close range. Of course, the danger with battleships is you can't get so close that you get torpedoed. I'm not terribly afraid of anybody's guns. Even the Tegetov has, you know, okay guns, but they're a little bit low caliber. They're not the best, especially at range. So I'm not super worried. That's what makes the game so different at tier 5 than at tier 10. Like I would never do this at tier 10. I wouldn't just open water sail across broadside to 4 players on the enemy team. I got a destroyer here, I got a cruiser, I got a battleship, they all have my broadside. But at tier 5, I mean, for example, this destroyer, he's got 5.5 kilometer torpedoes. So as long as I don't get within 5.5 kilometers of him, I mean, I have nothing to fear from his guns. He could fire at me all day. He's just not going to do that much. The cruiser is, I mean, a little more concerning just in the sense that if he keeps shooting at me, he can do a lot of damage. The only thing I really have to worry about is a stray overpen or citadel from the Tegetov, which I just took. But even then, like, okay, that hurt. I mean, you know, that's not fun, but it's just so different than tier 10, right? I mean, you can't do this at tier 10. You can't do this. My goal here is to just eliminate everybody except the Tegetov and let my teammates do their work, you know, destroyers and cruisers. Those are supposed to be the natural enemies or the natural predators of battleships, so let's let them do it. I'm going to make a mistake here, and it's a mistake I've made before, and I need to coach myself out of this. You know, I've always felt like I don't want to waste battleship shots on low health targets like this, but the result of that is I'm going to leave this guy alive, and he's going to live for way, way, way too long. He's on exactly 170 health, and my teammates just can't hit him. And that's not entirely their fault. You know, guns at tier 5 are just really bad. And to be fair, the Kotovsky is maneuvering. So I should absolutely just use up a full 30-second reload and unload on that Kotovsky, and I don't. I just kind of assumed that my teammates would take care of him. I'm focused on this Nicholas, which is not useless because, you know, I am doing bits of damage to the Nicholas, and that helps. But I really should take out this Kotovsky, and I don't. Luckily, it's not the kind of poor decision that comes back to bite me, but it definitely was a mistake. This is what's so important about cruisers. I think this is what cruisers are best at. I've said it before. I'll say it again. that, you know, when you're in a cruiser, I feel like one of your obligations in terms of team play is removing low health targets. You know, you have good range on your guns and adequate damage to just take out low health targets. And because you have typically really low reload and good gun traverse, you know, you have the flexibility to be responsive to that. Assuming you're not going to expose yourself to a lot of damage in return, I always feel like it's good to just get a target off the map. Now, luckily at these tiers, you know, ships like the Kotovsky don't have heals. It's even more important like at tier 10 because ships can just heal up. I'm a little uncertain whether I want to take on this Tegetov just like straight up. It seems like way too much of a fair fight, and I don't like fair fights. I don't want a fair fight. If I am going to take on the Tegetov, I'm going to use the advantage of my sap shells, which is that I can be way more angled to him than he can to me. Like at the angle that he's at, my sap still does really good damage. But if I was at that angle to him, his AP does nothing. So, granted, I still got a lot of non-penetrations because too many of the shells went into the belt. So that is the issue with sap. So we're going to trade back and forth. Obviously, I really wish I could shoot at that destroyer, at that Nicholas, but I can't. I'm kind of torn here about whether to take a blind shot at him. I think I actually am going to. I don't know whether this is the right play. This is a huge mistake on my part. I mean, this is just dumb. This is me being a big old dummy. Of course, I should have been aware of torpedoes coming from that destroyer. I mean, that's just not smart. Oh well, one bad decision, right? Fortunately, again, these poor choices don't come back to bite me, but they could have. They easily could have, but they're not the Cavour's fault. No, it's not the Cavour's fault. Just me being a big old dummy pants. But yeah, I mean, is the Cavour a good ship? It's all right. I think it's, you know, for a Tech Tree ship, it's okay. Obviously, there are better ships. I think the Julio Cesar is better. Obviously, the Fujin is better. The Tegetov is probably better. There's a lot of issues here with the Cavour. You know, I mean, it doesn't have too much going for it outside of these really good sap shells. Concealment's not particularly good. Maneuverability and speed aren't particularly good. So, you know, it's basically just floating high caliber 305 sap guns. I wouldn't say it's the most fun ship at this tier. There are other things I'd probably pick. You know, I really enjoyed the Omaha, for example. But if you don't have a Julio Cesar, which I realize most people don't, and you don't have a Tegetov, which a lot more people have one of those, or if you just really enjoy sap shells, you like watching those red tracers come out of your ship, you know, I think the Cavour is workable. I think the guns are pretty good. I did good damage with them this game. Gonna end up with like 60,000 damage, which is perfectly fine. I think if you're careful with it, this Tegetov's in a rough spot. I'm not sure what I would have done if I was him. I think he's going to make the right play here. He's just going to head for the cap. But, I mean, there's nothing he can do. Like, this game's lost, right? I might have been tempted to spin in a circle and see if I could take out the Sirocco. You know, just charge him. It's really easy for destroyers to get spotted at this tier inadvertently. Not because that would win the game, but just because it would be more fun, and there's nothing that's going to win this game. Yeah, sorry, this last part might drag a tiny bit. I possibly should have edited some of this out. But, you know, I enjoy the gameplay down at these lower tiers, as I always say. I think these ships are... well, I think there's just less... You're never going to have one of those games where you spawn in and all of a sudden there's like a sub and airplanes and everything else in your face, and you just get like swarmed and swamped and overwhelmed and you just die in the first couple minutes. You know, unless you really mess up, or unless you're in a light cruiser and get terribly unlucky, that's just not going to happen. The pace of the game is just a little bit slower, for better or for worse. Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of these guns, right? This is an angled battleship at 7.4 km. And I mean, that's not amazing dispersion, but it's pretty good, actually. And that's like 7K. I mean, if you did 7K on every angled battleship, and if you can angle to them the way they're angling to you, and you just get to fire at battleships and do sap damage over and over again, it's like a little baby Christopher Columbo, right? I mean, you're just doing consistent, this is what Potato Quality always hates, and he's right. It takes a lot of the tactics out of the game because basically this ship can just damage anybody kind of at almost any angle. You see, I finally did get ricochets there because he's completely bow on to me. But it's such reliable, consistent damage that it's hard not to be seduced by it, so to speak. But yeah, that's a nice 2 badge, 61k damage, no kills, but the win and 1100 XP. So, not a bad game. And I will see you guys in the next one.